On today's show, is there any chance that Jason Kidd starts Daniel Gafford again? Can Gafford still anchor a Luka, Kyrie, Klay defense in a starting lineup? Talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager at the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day in the offseason. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On Mavs your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Take us with you. Leave a 5-star review wherever you like. Like the video on YouTube. Comment anything below on YouTube or now on Spotify or on Instagram at Locked On Mavs, Twitter at Locked On Mavs, any of those places. Let us know in the comment section. Should Gafford start instead of Lively? Is there any case? Can any case be made about that? Let us know in the comment section. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get free week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And joining me from the great Slightly Biased YouTube channel, you know him, Ben Rogers' favorite Mavs media person. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
What's up? Little behind the scenes how the sausage is made. You'll see I'm in the same outfit as yesterday.
I didn't even change hats. I didn't even change hats for you guys watching on YouTube. Sorry.
And you guys might think that's because we recorded 2 episodes one night. No, I just hung this up and put it back on.
We went on a bender together.
Yeah, we just got back.
We just got back, and it's the next day. And yeah, still wearing the same clothes. That's how we roll.
That's right. You know what they say about Wednesday nights? That's the night you want to be out on town.
Lee Harvey's was wild last night, and we were part of it.
Is there a bar called Lee Harvey's?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Be careful in there.
It's a different one.
Oh.
Today, we're going to talk about Daniel Gafford.
Do you have any aspirations to become president? I would not enter that bar.
We have playhouses, too. I don't know if you want to go to those either.
No.
We'll talk about things that surprise us about Daniel Gafford. We'll talk about what Daniel Gafford needs to do better, why the lineups with Daniel Gafford were negative in the playoffs, and talk about some of those things. But I want to start here because the talk from all of us has been Dereck Lively. He's on this rise. He could be the third best player in the Mavericks next season. He was, their third most important, maybe their second most important player in the playoffs. He's definitely going to start and all that. But are we sure? Because I've covered Jason Kidd now for 3 whole years. I've been very up and down about Jason Kidd. I've been very open about that.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
And I know that Jason Kidd makes some decisions sometimes where we go, is there any chance that Kidd plays or starts Gafford or plays him more? Are we for sure that Lively is going to be the starter / plays more than Daniel Gafford?
Sure that he plays, barring injury, of course. Yes, he will definitely play more. Even in the playoffs when Gafford was starting, Lively played like 4 times as many minutes as Gafford. Are we confident he's going to start? Now, that's a different question because now you're getting into the Kid. Let's not forget, Maxi Kleber was the starting center on opening night last year.
Yes.
That was a thing that came out 30 minutes before the game, and everyone's like, what?
And in 2022, Dwight Powell was still the starter all through the playoffs, even though it was very clear that Maxi was more effective than him.
And not only that, Dwight Powell would get like 2 minutes at the start of the first quarter, the third quarter, and that would be it.
So can Daniel Gafford be the Dwight Powell ceremonial starter for the Dallas Mavericks at center?
Ceremonial starter. I guess it's possible. I really doubt it, though. I really doubt it. I think the idea would be... Well, I guess the idea would be Gafford is so... I guess Lively is too, but Gafford is such like a pick and roll dominant player. That's like what he's here to do. So the idea is you want him on the court as much as possible with Luka.
This is it.
But then at the same time, it's like that's what Lively does too.
It's true, but one of the things that when I started to look through some stuff, post trade in the regular season, Gafford played 21.5 minutes per game, and Lively played 18.9 minutes a game. Like he played a little less than Gafford did, and like post trade, and that's when the Mavericks really went on their roll. And I think the case for Gafford starting is either he's so pick and roll dominant, or maybe he doesn't vibe that well with Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie was not a great lob thrower last time he was with the Mavericks. Now, maybe that'd be better with better, targets. It's, Gafford's a much better lob threat target than Dwight Powell was when he was here, or JaVale McGee was at the beginning of that season. But I think that maybe Daniel Gafford, would you start Gafford because he's that much more effective with Luka and that connection right there, the potential Slovenia connection if Gafford gets his naturalized citizenship. And Lively can just play with anybody, and Lively's going to be good no matter who you put him out there with. And it'd be better to just have to throw Gafford out there for the rebounding, the hustle, the all that, and to be better in pick and roll than if he was playing with Dinwiddie off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I see the argument, but for me, I came back to this with the Klay stuff. Who starts isn't something that matters all that much to me. I would assume, though, as a player, it does matter. But, like, if you're Dereck Lively, I think you want to start. Like, I think you're going into year 2. I think he's going to want to be starting, after the performance he just had. And also, I do wonder, the Gafford trade happens. Dereck Lively, was that when he broke his nose? Like, Dereck Lively was out for weeks. And the Mavericks made the trade for Gafford. Lively comes back from injury afterwards and starts for a little bit, and the Mavericks, start losing, and so they go Gafford in the starting 5. But I wonder if, like, just the course of how that all played out last year is different if Lively's healthy when the trade's made, and it's like, hey, Lively's our starting 5. This is what we've been doing. Gafford, you're coming off the bench. And it was just kind of made awkward because Gafford gets here immediately and Lively's out, and
I think also we didn't know as much about Gafford with this group than we did about Lively at that point. Yeah. It's like, okay, we know that Lively is important, and we know we can go to Lively and that he's going to be who he is with this group. We did not know that about Daniel Gafford. And so I think that part of the minutes at post-trade was maybe Kidd trying to figure out what Gafford could give them and how he could play them and all that. But yeah, you're right. When and that Lively was not playing in that OKC game, the first one, right? The February one? No, he did not play. He didn't play in that game. And then you had a couple more games. He came off the bench in that San Antonio game when he returned, and then he started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and then he didn't start the rest of the season.
Yeah,
because Gafford got that spot. So there was some of that, and so I don't know. Maybe Kidd does something like that again, but I still do think it'll be Lively.
I think either way, Lively's gonna finish the season playing more minutes, even if there is a weird, Gafford starting because we like him more with Luka thing.
The Dwight Powell memorial ceremonial starting center spot.
Yeah, the memorial ceremonial starter. That's how they're going to introduce him at the stadium too.
Yeah, Sean Heath's going to get on the he's going to get on the mic and be like, and from Arkansas, the Dwight Powell ceremonial memorial starting center for your Dallas Mavericks, Daniel Gafford.
That would be good. And Powell has to greet him. Powell walks out with him.
He has to do some kind of handshake with him at that point, or maybe he walks him out. You know how on senior night your parents walk the athlete to the center field,
really passing the torch.
Notice I didn't say myself.
Yeah,
they walk someone else.
I have a funny story from that, but I'm not going to share it on this.
From senior night?
Yeah.
Well, you got to do it now.
Let's just say it was merely weeks after a splitting, and it was very awkward.
Oh no, your parents?
Yes.
Oh. Did you have to walk them with one on one arm and one on the other?
Yeah, yep.
They were arguing over your head,
No, they weren't arguing. It was like a very amicable thing, but it was just weird. We're trauma dumping now.
Slightly traumatized from senior night.
I think they were more traumatized by that than me.
Yeah. My dad had it where at my wedding, he had his two parents end up sitting next to each other, and he hadn't seen his two parents together since he was in elementary school. And then the pastor, one of the pastors gets up to pray, and then he's like, everyone hold hands. And then he saw his two parents hold hands in the front row, and it was this crazy moment. Coming up, can Daniel Gafford anchor a Luka, Kyrie, Klay defense? If he could start, or if he is going to play in a lineup like that, can he still anchor that defense? Let's talk about that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavericks is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It is. But we have something different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it, just $5. And get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, which is great, I have YouTube TV, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account, current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And while you're there, go check out and see what you can put that $5 on. There's all kinds of other stuff. They have NBA futures bets. They have WNBA with our Dallas Wings getting back into action. They play the Liberty, so you can go check out that. They're like a 13.5-point underdog, which is not great for the Dallas Wings. They have not had a great season. But you can put all kinds of money on any other team. The Liberty are now the favorite to win the championship instead of the Aces. That's kind of wild. Check it out. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon.
People forget about Frank.
I forgot that's what that button was.
I was about to say, who is that?
People
Are
forget
we talking
about
about Dwight
Frank.
Powell now?
It is probably one of my favorite drops of Locked On Mavs all time.
People forget about Frank.
Isaac's little at the end of that is just, it's the perfect like icing on the cake of this.
People forget about Frank.
I can't believe that was said.
And now that we're like praising Nico Harrison so much for this roster that he's made, like this roster is solid now and like
Great, even.
yeah, great. And for the third ball handler, not last season, but the season before that, we were asking the question, who can be the third ball handler? And it was like Josh Green, we got Spencer Dinwiddie, and then
People forget about Frank.
And what makes it even sadder is that was like kind of following up, like talking about who's going to replace Brunson.
yes, Dinwiddie was going to replace Brunson, and then who's going to replace Dinwiddie? It was like, okay, well, what if Josh Green's better? And then
People forget about Frank.
And this is how delusional I get. It's like I was kind of rocking with it.
the name
I was
checks
like,
out.
I was like, you know what, Frank? Like,
Well, he had those moments against Booker in the playoffs where you go, okay, here we go. It's kind of like Jaden Hardy this past year, where Jaden Hardy had those moments against the Timberwolves, and you go, okay, I kind of see the light. I see the vision on Frank because he was playing well against Booker and defending him well.
I will stand on it that the Mavs, I don't think, win that series without Frank Ntilikina. Full stop.
Wow.
I'm being dead serious.
You know what? About the 2022 Phoenix Suns series,
People forget about Frank.
they do.
I really think they do. I really think they do.
Wild. People forget about Daniel Gafford now too, because we talk all about Lively. We talked about him and for great reason. He was awesome through the playoffs. He proved himself to be a 16-game player. It was awesome to see him. But let's say Gafford starts, or maybe he doesn't, but he's definitely going to play because they'll play him 20 minutes or so. Can Gafford anchor a Luka, Kyrie, Klay defense? And I ask this because in the regular season, last season, with Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington, and Derrick Jones Jr., the Mavs had 109.9 defensive rating. And then you go to the playoffs, and that same lineup had 114.2 defensive rating. It went up, and it was not great through that. And I'm a little concerned about Daniel Gafford's defense. If you take away some of that perimeter defense, and like all of a sudden that it could break down a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure he's that level of a rim protector, especially contextually. I mean, there's just not a lot of minutes to go off of in the playoffs. That could just be, let's not forget, some of those numbers are probably skewed by those Clippers games where they just genuinely could not miss a three-pointer. It was like no matter the defense the Mavs played against them. What was that, game 4, when they were just draining 3 after 3? Lively's more what you would expect from the modern anchor center defensively, where he'll block shots, he'll be a presence on the inside, but also if he gets out on the perimeter, if he gets switched on, he can more than certainly hold his own. I don't think Gafford's really like that, and we saw that exploited quite a bit of times in the playoffs, against the Thunder, against the Celtics, where Gafford became, I don't want to say unplayable, but the minutes for him took a pretty sharp nosedive in some of those games and series. And so, I do. I don't think he could anchor a defense. I think that's asking too much out of him. But if he's your backup or your second guy defensively as a center, you could do way worse.
Oh, I mean, this is an embarrassment of riches at the center position compared to where the Mavericks have been in the past. I mean, not 10 minutes ago, you and I were talking about 2022, where the conversation was Dwight Powell versus Maxi Kleber. And then the season after that, it was JaVale McGee versus Christian Wood versus Dwight Powell. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
unbelievable.
We're in a much better spot talking about this. But yeah, I think that one of the reasons why Gafford won't start and that Lively will is because Lively is a better defender, a better rim protector, a better switching out. And so I think that's why if the defense does get a little worse, the Derrick Jones Jr. to Klay, translation makes him a little worse defensively. If it does, which we're not sure that it will or not. If it does, then you need that better defender at center a lot more, and you need versatility. And Lively has more of a ceiling to hit than Gafford does. A lot of this stuff about Lively, like overtaking Gafford, is more about Lively than it is about Gafford. Gafford is Gafford is who he is. Like you said, the Mavs know what they got in him. They've got, he's going to be an excellent, maybe one of the best backup centers in the league. If Hartenstein doesn't start, then maybe it's him. But I mean, he's going to be one of the best there. And they're going to need his like explosive, like vertical threat, the rebounding, the blocked shots. Have you seen the clip of him playing in runs and he's blocking Chet one-on-one, like that stuff?
And he's bald.
Oh, is bald Gafford? That's the Gafford you prefer?
I'm just saying, man, there's a correlation when you go bald in the NBA. There just is. There's like a 5+ attribute boost.
I don't know. LeBron's been hanging on. Is that maybe LeBron's last ditch effort? He's just like,
yes,
all right, I'm holding on to this hair. And then as soon as I start to feel it slip, it's like, all right, I don't think I'm an all-star this year. Like all of a sudden December, LeBron just shaves it and like goes on a run and becomes an all-star again. And we're like, oh my gosh, that was it.
Yes, that's it. That would be so funny. But yes, I think that is going to happen.
Katie's doing the same thing.
I agree with, it's important that you said that because this is a Daniel Gafford centered episode and we're talking about why maybe he shouldn't start and stuff. And it's because of how, like you said, of how good Lively is and how good we think he's going to be. It has nothing to do with Daniel Gafford not being good enough or whatever the case may be. Like 2 years ago, Daniel Gafford, no question about it, starting on this team, getting 30 minutes a game. Going into last season, no question about it, starting. The Western Conference Finals year, no question about it, starting. Like he's a very good player. And like you said, if Hartenstein's coming off the bench, he's probably, and maybe I'm missing somebody, but he probably is the best backup big in the sport. Yeah, I mean, if Horford doesn't start, then maybe it's him or whatever they decide to do over there. But he had big moments in the playoffs too. Like there's time. I mean, he played 31 minutes against Minnesota in that game. He played 28 minutes against Minnesota. When they play bigger teams, they'll need him. They'll need him in a big way. And if Lively gets in foul trouble, because he's still going to be 21 this season, right? I mean, he's still a super young guy that get in foul trouble. They'll definitely need him. The question is, can he anchor a defense? And I'm curious to see how that works out and how that all plays. I also don't necessarily think that's what they brought him in to do, to necessarily anchor a defense. I think it was, we have a young center in Dereck Lively. And look, Dereck Lively was awesome in the playoffs. They had no way of knowing that before the trade. Right. Like they genuinely had, I'm sure they assumed just because of everything that Lively showed up until that point that he was going to be ready to go. But you really never know until it happens. So, they have their insurance policy. And like you said, Lively will be in foul trouble. And Lively missed time last year. Like he even
played 55 games?
Yeah, 55 games. And a lot of that was freak weird injuries. But, wow, I'm looking at Gafford's playoff logs and it's like better than I remembered.
Yeah, you're talking about him like losing minutes. And it wasn't really until, game 1, he played 14 minutes against the Celtics. Then you get to game 4, that game that the Mavs blew him out, and he played 9. And then he played 11 in game 5. But he played, 22 in game 2. No, he's still out there, and he's still going to play a bunch of minutes. He's still a very important player to this Mavericks team. Important to their culture, what they can do. I mean, him and Lively. The story of him and Lively last year, when one of them came off the bench for the other, and they met at half court, and they both said to each other, "Go be a monster." Like that was the thing that they said to each other. That helped their culture a lot, I think, because there could easily be this. Well, Gafford is 6 years older than Lively. He's been in the NBA. He's actually played in playoff games. Lively is this rookie that's coming in and all this. There was none of that, at least from what I saw. No. Them saying to each other, go be a monster and go out there. And I think that was great for him. Coming up, though, what surprised you about Gafford last year? Maybe it was his game logs in the playoffs. What does Gafford need to do better? What does he need to show us? We'll talk about all that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you are a human and listening to this, so all the bots, turn this off right now. If you're a human, then you have anxiety. You have things that you need to talk about. You need to walk through with somebody else. And it's so great. I cannot tell you how great it is to have someone to ask you pointed questions, to ask you non-biased things and non-biased like takes about the things that you talk about and how you're speaking, and to see patterns in your life. My therapist, I'm able to go to him and he says, hey, you felt this same way, this, and this time. Let's talk about this and let's unpack this. And it helped me to realize patterns in my life, because I don't take notes about my own mental health, but you know who does? My therapist. And BetterHelp will do that for you. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Slightly, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of this show. Every once in a while, you gotta throw that one back out. It's a classic. That's it. I still get people that DM or text on the Mavs insider line and are like, "Where is that? Where is that file? Can you give me that file?"
Luka Doncic.
Amazing. Daniel Gafford, we're talking about him. He's going to be the Mavs backup center most likely this season, but he's still a very important player for the Mavericks. What surprised you about Daniel Gafford last year? Not having seen him that much before, playing in Washington, coming into the Mavericks, playing the games that he did and all that.
Well, I hate to be the guy to drop the ball knowledge thing and the
who knows ball?
Believe it or not, I do watch, people always just get angry whenever I talk about non-Mavericks related things, but I do watch backs. It's all I do. I was telling Nick before we started recording, I was like, dude, I don't know if I got 2 more months. Like, I'm just waiting around in me. Like, I'm just bored. That's like what I do when basketball starts. It's just that basketball's on. But I don't know, like play style wise, if there was necessarily anything that surprised me, like any of his skills. I knew he was a great rim runner. I knew that he was a super high energy guy. I knew he was a great rebounder, shot blocker. I guess it just goes back to what we said with PJ too, is like, he wasn't scared in the playoffs, never felt too big for the moment. And he was good, but he was that year that the Wizards had Russ. And that's why I was actually like pretty high on it. Was you go back and you watch like how good he was with Russell Westbrook, which was really the last time in Washington he had a lob thrower or a playmaker anywhere near Luka.
How about a point guard?
Yeah, just a point guard in general, really. But I mean, Tyus Jones is good, but it's not the level of those guys, of course. But it's just like none of these guys on the Mavericks felt scared ever. In Gafford, there was moments in the playoffs where the energy was kind of slipping at times, and Gafford would be out there grab an offensive rebound and go back up and get an and one and just go nuts, and the crowd would just sort of feed off of that. Like,
yes,
those are important pieces to have.
Huge, massive. Also, one thing that surprised me about Daniel Gafford, he only played 2.5 seasons for the Wizards. Felt like he was there forever.
Yeah, he was a Bull for a tiny bit.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me about Daniel Gafford was first play of him with the Mavericks. Luka's just testing it out. Just testing out to see what he's got. Throws him this full court outlet pass, and Gafford gets up and catches it. His ability to catch at the peak in transition like that was surprising to me, because in his introductory press conference, he told us he played football and he played wide receiver and he was terrible and had terrible hands.
Really?
Yes. Huh. So I was like, okay, he has terrible hands. So we'll see. I'm pretty sure I remember him having pretty good hands with the Wizards. Now let's see it. And the first play, he throws in that full court pass and he catches it. But plays like that open things up. And Luka doesn't do that with Lively that much. Maybe he will this season, but I think maybe it's the way Daniel Gafford runs the floor. I think also is something that surprised me about him.
Yeah, definitely a guy who would get out and run in transition. And, it's maybe he was just being modest
about his hands.
Because if I ever talk with somebody and they're talking about playing basketball, I'll be like, yeah, I'm not that great. And I'm being genuine. I'm being serious.
You don't do the Najee Marshall? Like,
I'm talented at everything, to be honest. I do it all. So.
I don't do that. Sometimes I will. It depends. If I get a lay of the land and I'm the biggest guy there, I'll be like, yeah, give me the basketball and get out of the way.
By the way, in this drop, you can hear my laugh in the background.
I'm talented at everything, to be honest. I do it all. So
You're such a suck up, dude. You're such a brown noser.
It was the funniest thing I'd heard somebody say at a press conference. I'm talented.
No, it is funny. But maybe if I'm ever asking somebody if they're good at basketball, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, or I'm not that good. Sometimes
That's
I'm like, you're good.
That's the guitar player thing. If you ever meet a guitar player and or somebody that plays guitar and you're like, hey, how good are your guitar? I pick a little bit here and there. They're probably really good.
Yeah.
Know?
So maybe that was just a subtle like, yeah, I was all right. I didn't have good hands.
Maybe it's about the geometry of the ball that's being thrown at him. Football.
I was gonna say that. I was like, well, basketballs are bigger.
It's more of a geometry question.
It might be a little bit more.
It's not a skill issue. It's about the ball. What do the Mavericks need from Daniel Gafford? What do they need him to be better at? One of the questions I was going to ask is why were the Gafford lineups a negative in the playoffs? What's something that he needs to get better at?
I don't know how much of that is really his. I mean, when we're talking about like the playoff minute stuff, I mean, I think we're dealing with 100 minutes. I mean, you those could always be like really weird and wonky and all over the place.
To break it down, it was negative 4.8 net rating in the playoffs. So they got outscored by about 5 points per 100 possessions in 851 possessions. They played in the playoffs. They were in the playoffs a long time.
With him on the court or
with Gafford on the court? With Gafford on the court.
Okay.
Non-Luka lineups with Gafford were negative 7.1. So Luka definitely affects this. With Luka, it was a negative 4.4. Luka and Kyrie and Gafford, so essentially the starting lineup, was a 0, just like a 0 in 621 minutes. So it was some of the like Gafford, but with not starters. Those lineups were not very good. So those are the lineups in the playoffs.
Well, I'm interested to see what that would look like if you sort of split up the series, because you think about who the Mavericks played, and it's like pretty much every series they played in had pretty skilled bigs or like were versatile teams that could space you out on defense and force your centers to do stuff. The Thunder, the Timberwolves I know they have Gobert, but if Gobert's out, you got Naz Reid, Cat, and then the Celtics, where that's just not Gafford's strength. And you ask, like, what does Gafford need? I don't think Gafford needs to do anything differently, to be honest with you. I think that's just like what they brought him in here to do. And the idea, we're talking about Lively again, is Lively will keep progressing and really turn into this guy where it's like 30 plus minutes in the playoffs. If we see the Celtics again, we are 100% confident that Lively can handle whatever they throw at him, and Gafford can sort of come off the bench and grab boards and be an energy guy and stuff like that. So I don't know if he has to improve on really. I don't know what Gafford could really improve on.
Well, it's like he is what he is, and we're good with that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It goes back to the thing about Lively just surpassed him, and that's nothing against Daniel Gafford. He just did exactly what the Mavs asked him to do, played to the level that he could, and maybe he could get better across the board, but you're not going to,
He's about to turn 26. Yeah. So it's not like he's 31 and like what you see is what you get. Like he's probably a year or two off from really reaching his peak, just historically. Like that's how it goes usually. And so he'll probably just become, I guess, like for a guy like him, it'll just become more cerebral. Like he'll just more experience, more, he just knows exactly where he needs to be at any given moment. So,
and he went from Jim Boylan with the Bulls as his coach to Wes Unseld Jr. as his coach in Washington. Like maybe nice to have a good
glow
coach.
Up, man. Look at the kid glow up. Like we're sitting here like, well, he's got a good coach now.
Isn't that crazy? It's true though.
A
year ago we'd be
just the coach.
A year ago we'd be like, man, Gafford's got terrible luck. Now he's with Kid. Like, he just can't get on a good team with a good coach.
I mean, I'm admitting my wrongs here.
Oh yeah, trust me. It was me. It was me too, buddy. It was both of us. We were both driving that bus.
You want a hug?
You know what's great is the community never really pushes back that hard against us.
Yeah, well, they're sort of like, well, where else do we go?
Yeah, I know. True. There's some good guys.
I think it's because everyone was thinking the same thing. Because when I finally did the the post game video, while I was walking around the Mavs court, and I was like, it's time. At the end of the season, the Mavs need to move on from Jason Kidd. I got so many people and so many Mavs fans that said, thank you. Finally, you said it. Like, finally, you came around to what we were thinking. And, like, I'm glad to be wrong about that and glad that Jason Kidd led the Mavs to the finals and all that. And I'm okay to be wrong about it. But, yeah, we didn't get any pushback because So many other Mavs fans felt that.
Right. That, and, it would have been a little hypocritical because you and I would get trashed because it's like, why are you not screaming that they should be firing Kidd? And it's like, I don't know. They just lost. Like, it's all right. So we finally, of course, naturally, we're like, all right, it's time. And that's like when they immediately turned it around.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah, maybe we were bulletin board material.
You know what? We were. I'm gonna claim that. I'm gonna claim that we were, and it's because of our opinions and our takes.
I'm maybe that I'm pretty certain I pinpointed when I got blocked by Luka was after the Pelicans in-season game where it was a complete disaster, and I was like, man, I really thought Luka was done with this type of stuff. Like, and you know what? Up until the final, which I don't even hold the finals game against him, but up until then, he really didn't have outbursts like that all season long.
You know what I imagine when you said I finally got down to when Luka blocked me?
What?
You have a bulletin board the size of your wall, like in your apartment, and you have this string and newspaper clippings. Like you found a Dallas Morning newspaper.
Old tweets.
Yeah, all of your tweets printed out.
That could be it.
It's just up there on the corkboard, and you just this one was connected to this one, and this one was.
It's like this one was pretty tough out of context.
You have transcripts of your streams printed out. It's just like this long one page is printed on.
Oh, the streams would be worse than the tweets. They run emotional. They run hot.
The other thing about Jason Kidd and us being bulletin board material is we know he looks at my tweets because he referenced one of my tweets, not last season, but the season before that. Like verbatim, word for word, he referenced one of my tweets in a press conference.
Look, I'm just going to be real with how scathing that was post that game. I would say there's a fairly solid chance that was seen by at least some people.
Sure.
And maybe relayed. I don't know how that works, though, to be honest with you. I'm not in there.
But I hope this is relayed to him, too. I'm glad I was wrong.
Yeah, we love you, Kid.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
And also, Kid, I do want to say, we were in your camp longer than pretty much everyone else.
That's right. We held on real
We really did. You got to give us some props there. We were holding on.
Oh my gosh. There you go. Guys, go check out Slightly Biased on his YouTube channel. He's got great streams going all the time, all throughout. I mean, he just was bragging to me that he did 2 hours without planning anything. This guy, just NBA content flows out of him.
You don't know what you're going to see because I don't even know what I'm going to be showing you before the stream starts. We just started.
We'll be back tomorrow talking more Dallas Mavericks on Locked On Mavs. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs this whole week. If you missed any episodes, go back on your podcast platform or on YouTube. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.